Who helped bring jobs back to Lordstown, Ohio? Kamala Harris. And in 2024, who will stand with the working class in our fight for justice? Kamala Harris. And that's the difference. Donald Trump is all talk, and Kamala Harris walks the walk.
A few moments later.
Our other top story tonight, President Trump has a rather unlikely ally in his push for tariffs on the auto industry.
Talking about UAW President Shawn Fain, who vocally supported Democrat Kamala Harris in the election. He says he's very much in favor of the move. Let's get out to Priya Mann with reaction on this story. Priya.
Hey, good evening, Kim. You know, auto experts say it's no surprise that workers would support tariffs. They want to keep jobs here in the U.S. Well, so does UAW leadership. But what is surprising is how dramatically the tone has shifted from the folks at the top of the UAW.
If you are a line worker in Michigan, you like what you're seeing right now from the Trump administration, because this is all about pushing domestic production.
Keeping jobs in the U.S. is what UAW members had rallied for when they went on strike in 2023. After securing historic wins during the election, the UAW leadership threw its support behind the Democrats. But in a stunning reversal, union leadership went from calling President Trump a scab who would harm workers to backing his policies. In response to potential tariffs late Wednesday night, UAW President Shawn Fain said, "We applaud the Trump administration for stepping up to end the free trade disaster that has devastated working class communities for decades. Ending the race to the bottom in the auto industry starts with fixing our broken trade deals, and the Trump administration has made history with today's action."
So UAW union boss Shawn Fain, who was a strong supporter of Joe Biden, and then when Joe Biden was tossed out, he put all of the support of the UAW behind Kamala Harris. But the crazy thing was this: 80% of the UAW was voting for Trump, but the union boss wanted to support Kamala Harris. Now, why did they do that? Could have been something in there for them, because anybody looking and saying that they wanted to protect their members, there's no way they would throw support behind the Biden and Harris administration, looking at how they were just throwing America away, just throwing us away, letting our jobs get shipped overseas, allowing our trade deficits to go out of control. And yet this man, Shawn Fain, talked negative about Trump for years. Refused to throw support behind Trump, the Republicans, or anything. Like I said, threw all his weight behind Kamala Harris, and then boom, the election comes, she loses. And now it seems like people begin to see clearly now. And all of the fear mongering of the media, as far as with these tariffs, is insane. So in this video, I'm going to show you clips where you're going to hear Shawn Fain explain why he did a complete, not even 180. Well, it is a 180. He did a complete about face on Trump and is now a Trump supporter. And you know it's strong when you can convince a never Trumper to become a Trump supporter. They become the most loyal allies the president has. I mean, look at J.D. Vance. Almost 10 years ago, you couldn't have paid anybody to believe J.D. Vance would have been on a ticket and let alone be the VP for President Trump. But guess what? It is. Why? Because he was a never Trumper that believed in the propaganda. But once you get beyond that and you see what's going on behind the curtain, your respect for that man goes through the roof. So let's check out Shawn Fain in this first clip in his own words. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to share another one with you. Check this clip out.
We are ecstatic to see an administration finally address the unfair trade laws in this country. These laws have destroyed the American working class. They've destroyed communities in this country and virtually every state for decades.
So as you just heard Shawn Fain say, the previous policies had been destroying the automotive industry for decades, but yet he was still at one point willing to throw all of his support behind Kamala Harris, despite the data telling him that it's BS and it will crush his members and will crush his industry. But a lot of people say they believe that Shawn Fain is gearing up for a 2028 presidential run. They say that some Democrats view him as their masculine voice, and the fact that he's throwing some weight behind President Trump now can make him appear like more of a moderate. But we can never forget, anybody that ever supported Kamala Harris and Joe Biden is nowhere near a moderate, especially when you saw the border wide open. You saw the economy getting crushed, and to still support that, you're a left-wing extremist libtard, or you have some kickback, some palm is about to get greased. That's the only way a sane person could ever get behind insane policies. But let's look at this graph right here where it talks a little bit, and I'm not going to be on this long, just a quick second. We're going to talk about the power of President Trump's tariffs and why he stands behind them and believes in them so much, because during his first administration, he used them. As you see here, President Trump used this power to increase tariffs on solar panels, washing machines, steel, and aluminum, as well as on a broad range of products from China. Overall, in 2019, the U.S. government brought in $79 billion on tariffs, twice the value from 2 years earlier, and a sharp break from recent trends. So why is President Trump so bullish on tariffs? Because they work. And why is the lamestream media and the Democrats so anti-tariffs? Because think about these deals where we allow countries to import their goods, we don't do anything. But when we export ours, we're okay with them tariffing us 25%, 50%. Some tariffs on certain products like dairy in Canada can go as high as 250%. So the only way a person would okay these deals is if there was something in it for them. And so we know what happened. And it's not just solely on the Democrats with that. I believe that there was Republican rhinos in Congress, and we know there was Democrats in Congress who were getting their palms greased by lobbyists for other countries to say, hey, stick this in your next omnibus bill, you know, make it to where we don't have to pay any tariffs on anything that we're importing in. And that profits that we're going to get, we'll kick you back. If you enjoyed this video, do me a solid, hit that like button. I will never ask you for a cash app, and I'll never bother you for a super chat. But you hitting that like button, it is currency. It helps spread the video around. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. On the Real Politics Podcast, that's what we do. We talk real politics. So once you subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell and then select all. That way, you'll be notified when I upload new videos. Now, Shawn Fain was recently on Face the Nation, and let's check out what he had to say on Face the Nation. But before that, in the comments section, I'm going to ask you, do you believe tariffs are a positive or a negative? You know, put it in the comments whether you support tariffs or whether you don't. And if you don't, if you feel like it, briefly explain why. And if you do, as briefly as possible, explain why. It's great to get this type of feedback. So when I present these videos or when I'm talking to other people, they can understand that the vast majority of people get it and they're on board with this and they're not falling for the fear mongering by the lamestream media. As a matter of fact, prior to 1913, under Democrat President Woodrow Wilson, there was no nationalized or federalized income tax across the board. That came in 1913 under Democrat President Woodrow Wilson, who was getting his funding from the Rothschilds and his right-hand man, Edwin House. And he also, and like I said, it was a whole bunch of other stuff to win with that, but that was a Democrat president, go figure, that wanted to put on a federal national tax across the board. When prior to that, we grew in wealth through tariffs. But let's check out Shawn Fain in this clip on Face the Nation. Check this out.
There's been no change in where we stand politically as a union and where, you know, what our stance is. Look, we've been very clear since day one of my administration. You know, we have expectations, endorsements are earned, but at the end of the day, like we're not, you know, we're not partisan to any one party here. We expect no matter what party someone comes from to stand up for what we believe in. So,
you know, for him to sit there and say that, you were full-throated supporting Kamala Harris. She had done nothing to earn that type of support. And Joe Biden, everything that he did had been anti-automotive industry, whether it be the EV mandate, whether it be the allowing of other countries to import their vehicles to be more price competitive than American auto builders, because they were having to pay all types of this, that, and the other and deal with regulations where the American companies started building their plants in other countries and then bringing the vehicles back. So for him to say that, that's a little disingenuous, but let me let him go ahead and keep going.
just because we find common ground on tariffs or on trade doesn't mean that everything else goes out the window.
Let's get back to the tariffs and the auto industry. Peter Navarro, a top advisor to the president on trade, says currently automobile manufacturing plants are at about 60% capacity. He argues that there's lots of untapped capacity, meaning jobs could be created relatively easy, and you wouldn't need to spend 2 or 3 or maybe 5 years building new factories. Is that your understanding? Is that your belief?
It's spot on. Look, we have a situation right now in Warren, Michigan, where 2,000 workers were laid off this past year. They built the Ram truck there for years under Stellantis, and Stellantis made a decision to shift that production to Mexico. They could shift that work back in very short order and be producing Ram trucks right back there and put those people back to work. I was just at Volkswagen this week, talking with workers down there that are trying to get their first contract, and the company announced a reduction of a shift. Meanwhile, Volkswagen is the biggest violator of all. 75% of their production for the North American market is made in Mexico. So they can shift product there overnight. There's excess capacity. People forget this lesson in World War II. The way that we formed the arsenal of democracy that won the war was they took the excess capacity of all the automotive manufacturing plants in the country and produced tanks and planes and bombs and engines and all those things. And it's no different right now. We have excess capacity. They could bring work back in very short order. And yes, they're in a situation where they need to build a new plant. Yeah, that's going to take a couple years, but there is plenty of opportunity for these companies to do the right thing and bring work back here overnight, just as quick as they ship it out of here.
And Shawn, for people who are listening to you, how do tariffs make that happen? What is the relationship between a 20 or 25% tariff and getting that capacity back up to where you'd like to see it?
Well, because like everything, the companies abuse the process. I mean, they're in the pursuit of driving a race to the bottom. I mean, the tariffs are, there was a major promise when NAFTA, we go back to when NAFTA happened in 1992, the big debate, and Ross Perot talked about the giant sucking sound that our manufacturing base was going to disappear. He was spot on, and we saw what happened in the ensuing 30 years.
And remember, that was Bill Clinton that got us into the NAFTA deals, which were considered to be one of the worst deals that we ever could have got put into. As soon as President Trump took office, boom, they were gone. We pulled out. What happens when Joe Biden gets in? They decide to start reasserting us back with these terrible trade deals. President Trump pulled us out of the Paris Accord, which is a part of the Green New Scam. The Democrat Party has done everything they could to crush the middle class, stomp on the little man, and to put elitists as like the supreme rulers over the rest of the people. And we just not going for it. Even never Trumpers are flipping the script now.
We've seen 90,000 plants leave. Like I said, we've seen 65 plants in the big three closed. Look, right now, as we speak, in Wisconsin, we have a Deere plant threatening to be closed, and their work being threatened to go to Mexico. We have a heavy truck plant at Freightliner, Volvo, and Mack Truck in Pennsylvania being threatened to be taken to Mexico. There is plenty of opportunity, and that's the reality that we've seen here in America. So tariffs are a tool in the toolbox. They're not the end-all solution. We have to fix the broken trade system. But the way tariffs work, I mean, it's a motivator because there's going to be a penalty for everything the companies ship in here. And I've had companies tell us point blank that they're going to have to bring product back here if those tariffs are implemented.
Boom. While the mainstream media and the Democrats have people freaking out, oh, the tariffs, oh my God, it's going to end society and everybody's going to be bull crap. President Trump did it in his first term, which helped lead to us having one of the best economies in the history of this country. So he knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. And yes, tariffs are not the end all be all, but they are an excellent and extremely powerful negotiating tool. We know in our everyday lives, you want to get somebody's attention, start messing with their money or penalize them in their pockets. And I assure you, you get their attention real quick. So just wanted to jump on and give a shout out to President Trump and the Trump administration for pushing forward and implementing these tariffs that go into place on April 2nd. Call it Liberation Day. And like they've already said, there's going to be some disruption in the marketplace. But how much of it is it genuine or generated? These left-wing extremist libtards, they have people in very high places that will intentionally do things to freak the market out just for them to find out that, oh, they overreacted, they sold too quick, somebody else bought it real cheap. And now, guess what? They look stupid and they have egg on their face. Think about it. It just happened recently. With the whole Ukraine thing, oh my God, Zelensky, Trump, Mexico, Canada, the United States is over. The markets plummeted. And what happened? The premier of Ontario came out and said, hey, we're going to stop this thing right now. We need to go back in there and talk with President Trump. Cooler heads must prevail. So, hey, listen, don't let them freak you out. But I know if you're watching this and you're listening to this, you're on the right side of history. You're one of the intelligent ones that get it, that understand, that aren't allowing your emotions to override your logic and realizing that in the long run, this is going to be better for the country. Everybody's looking for this immediate gain. And that's what Joe Biden them did. Hey, take this and immediate that. And hey, we're going to give you this immediate gratification for long-term pain. Well, President Trump is saying, hey, listen, we may deal with some short-term uncomfort or discomfort or pain, but in the long term, it's going to be a beautiful thing for the country. And that's what I signed up for. And that's what I voted for. So, hey, listen, man, as always, if you watched this far, thank you so much. And as always, like this video, share the video, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. I'm Brian Maxwell. I will be back in my office in Florida in the next couple of days and keep bringing it back at you. But thank you for being patient with me while I'm in my daughter and son-in-law's house, still getting it done, visiting out here in Colorado. But hey, listen, I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out, y'all.